The following program is an original production of WICC PBS Chicago.
Chicago City Council approves Mayor Emanuel's 2016 proposed budget, including the largest property tax increase in the city's history, $543 million. Will this finally address Chicago's financial shortfall? Despite warnings, some women continue to drink during pregnancy, leading to birth defects and developmental issues. Pediatricians say if you want a healthy baby, don't drink. And it's that scary time of year, Halloween. See how a local family turned their favorite holiday into a frightening career. Stay with us for these stories and more tonight on In the Loop. Good evening, everyone. I'm Lauren Cohn. Tonight, a close look at a brain disorder that's entirely preventable and which the medical community is just now beginning to understand. It's called Fetal Alcohol Spectrum Disorder, or FASD, caused by pregnant mothers who drink. In the Loop's Robin Robinson has been examining this issue that affects all races, classes, and income levels.
We spoke with one suburban couple whose adopted son suffers from this disorder, and they live with fear every day, plus frustration trying to get an accurate diagnosis and their efforts to raise awareness about FASD.
Probably around the age of 4, I noticed that there were some things that were just different. He didn't have imaginative play. He was a big risk taker.
This suburban Chicago mom and dad don't want to reveal their identities to protect the privacy of their adopted 16-year-old son, who was recently diagnosed with FASD.
There's this level of embarrassment that goes along with FASD, and it's not talked about.
The embarrassment factor is big because it means your mother drank when she was pregnant with you, so FASD is completely preventable. Yet researchers estimate 3 to 5% of school-age children in the U.S. are afflicted with the disorder. According to a recent study by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, nearly 10% of pregnant women reported drinking alcohol. A little more than 4% report binge drinking. The CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics say no amount of alcohol is safe for pregnant women. FASD is different from fetal alcohol syndrome, which is severe brain damage. FASD is more subtle with a wide range of symptoms. Getting an accurate diagnosis can be frustrating. Over the course of 10 years, this suburban family received 10 different diagnoses.
ADHD, sensory integration disorder, anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress syndrome, bipolar, conduct disorder, mood disorder.
Various medications were prescribed for each diagnosis. Nothing seemed to work.
And it was scary because he would run in front of cars. He would just wander off and get lost.
As their son got older, there were violent outbursts. Police were called to the home numerous times.
I could be locked in my room for safety until my husband came home because he was upset because he didn't get his way.
Their son was hospitalized 5 times in 1 year. Finally, doctors tried a new drug called lurasidone, which is used to treat schizophrenia and bipolar disorder.
Today's much more stable. For the most part, pleasant to be around. He seems happier.
Dr. Carl Bell, a Chicago psychiatrist, says he is seeing an increasing number of patients with FASD. He calls fetal alcohol spectrum disorder an epidemic in the low-income African-American community.
There's this huge number of mildly mentally retarded black children. Bad temper, can't do math, ADHD looking like they can't sit still, bad memory, explosive emotions.
Dr. Bell blames the high rate of FASD among African Americans on neighborhoods saturated with alcohol. A retail store business analysis done this year, for instance, found that the Southside Inglewood neighborhood has an excess supply of stores selling beer, wine, and liquor as compared to other Chicago neighborhoods. And as Dr. Bell points out, many, if not most women, don't even know they're pregnant in the first month, sometimes two. They're unaware of the damage they are doing to an unborn child by drinking.
You can advertise and do primary prevention and tell women not to drink when they're pregnant till the cows come home. You are not going to get to the women who don't know they're pregnant.
The third week of pregnancy is when alcohol does the most harm. Exposure to alcohol can slow down overall growth and cause brain damage. A normal brain has lots of bumps and valleys. The FASD brain is much smoother because the alcohol has killed numerous brain cells. The corpus callosum, connecting the right and left hemispheres of the brain, is missing. Despite the evidence and warnings by American doctors, Danish researchers say light drinking is okay. They found no differences between children of mothers who consumed up to 8 drinks a week while pregnant and others who abstained.
You get angry when you hear about that. There's no way that consuming alcohol could be a benefit to the mother or the child in utero.
How does a parent know if their child has FASD? Doctors use what's called the 4-digit test, measuring certain areas on the face, small eye openings, a smooth area between the nose and upper lip, and a thin upper lip. But the key piece of evidence is confirmation from the birth mother that she was drinking during pregnancy. FASD is a lifelong disorder with a wide range of disabilities. There's no cure, but new treatments are offering hope. Clinicians across the country specializing in FASD are seeing some positive results with a natural supplement called choline. Dr. Bell has a 50-year-old patient with learning disabilities who was skeptical at first about choline.
She knew that her mother had been drinking when she was carrying her. She tried the choline, she came back, she said, it's like night and day.
Really?
These kids go through hell, and his words have cried out and said he's gone through hell. He didn't have a choice. He was innocent.
Parents in the Chicago region dealing with FASD are starting to organize. They are putting together a summer camp in Ingleside and taking applications right now at FASDcamp.org. And in Platteville, Wisconsin, there's a residential nonprofit program for young adults with FASD, providing housing and vocational training. You can check them out at FASDcommunities.com.
Thank you, Robin. The mayor's property tax proposal gets the green light. President Obama talks gun control. And from costumes to candy, Halloween is big business in Chicago. Joining us tonight to chew on these stories are Wendell Hudson, journalist with theexaminer.com, Michael Puente, reporter for WBEZ, and Ted Dabrowski, vice president of policy for the Illinois Policy Institute. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, let's start with the big story, the tax hike that we're all hurting from, $755 million in taxes, fees, and fines. If we break that down, we are now seeing the largest property tax hike in history, $543 million, $45 million to Chicago Public Schools, $950 a month to the garbage fee. So, Wendell, let me start with you. Was there a choice here, or is this the only option?
This was the only option. I see no other way Mayor Emanuel could have came up with the revenue to make the pension payments that's necessary. But I think what's important here, yes, these high taxes are going to push a lot of people to the brink that are already at the brink, and maybe even have them reconsider moving out of the city. But I think the focus needs to be, how did we get here? And so much attention is being placed on Mayor Emanuel, and not to take anything off of him, but he was not the one who created the problem of the pension problem. Former Mayor Richard Daley is the one who put us in this position, because pension payments were not being made for over 10 years during his administration. And so because of that, we're now at this end of the road. There's no more kicking the can down the road. He's retired and he's out of office, so Mayor Emanuel inherited this problem. So yes, it's terrible that you have to raise these property taxes to pay for a problem that was created before you became mayor. But at the same time, I don't think we should forget about the person who created this problem. And that person that I see is Mayor Daley.
The concern is, though, we're stuck with it. So, Michael, what can taxpayers expect? More of this and more of this?
Well, it seems like it. I think it's funny to me that some of the news accounts that have come out says that Mayor Emanuel won his property tax increase. He's victorious in it, but who really is the winner here? Nobody. It seems like everybody is kind of the loser in this because they're going to have to pay for it. The really big winner, though, are the people who are maybe looking to leave the city, and I think that's real. That's a real possibility. Folks like in Northwest Indiana. I mean, the realtors have to be getting ready to say, how are we going to pitch our lower taxes, balanced budget in Indiana, maybe better schools in certain areas to folks in Chicago. And we've already seen a lot of people from Cook County and the south suburbs and Chicago moving to Northwest Indiana. It's already happening. So this may just be piling on to the point can't take it anymore.
Ted, would you agree with Wendell that we really had no choice, or we didn't get reforms? We still have significant spending under this administration.
Yeah, so I think the big issue is that once again, taxpayers are being hit up to fund a problem where there's no addressing that problem by the Springfield, by Chicago, by the city council. And so I think all we're doing is we're filling the coffers of the politicians again. They're going to spend it again, and it's going to be on the backs of taxpayers. We didn't see any reforms. And so until we get those reforms, they should not be coming to taxpayers. And I think it's a big mistake. In the end, it's going to be the people who rent who are going to pay higher rents through their landlords. The businesses are going to be struggling to keep their jobs, keep job opportunities going, and it's going to hurt the Chicago economy. I think Michael's absolutely right. They can roll out the welcome mats in Indiana.
Let me read you a quote. Alderman James Kaplan in the Sun-Times said after the vote, "It's a budget that I believe will keep our economy growing and places us back on track and having a healthy economic outlook." Do we have a healthy economic outlook?
Not from where I sit. I don't see a healthy. I think this is a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. And I think the bleeding is going to continue until there are reforms, until we come up with a permanent solution. This will solve the problem in the interim, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're going to be right back in this position, if not sooner, and you're going to have to go back to the taxpayers and say, hey, look, I know we raised our property tax, but we're going to have to raise it again, or we're going to have to double the tax on bottled water, or some other new fee or increase that they're going to have to come up with. There needs to be some reform if they want to keep people living in the city of Chicago and Cook County.
Michael, what's your take on the money that's going to Chicago public schools? I mean, I'm a taxpayer. I'm for education. I don't mind giving my tax dollars to education, but if I don't see kids reading and writing and graduating and kids are truant, the system seems broken to me. Why should I continue my tax dollars to go towards the Chicago public schools?
Well, that's right, Lauren. And I think one of the main crusts here, if not only people are going to be paying higher taxes, but they want to see what are they getting for their investment. If you're living in certain areas of the South Side, you've got poor schools, you got high crime, you got crumbling infrastructure. So what really are you getting for all that money? So I think I saw Mayor Emanuel on the news yesterday saying, look, there's a cost that has to be paid when you want to live in a city like Chicago. Great transportation, great parks downtown. That's that one side of Chicago. But then you've got the other side where, what are you really getting for your investment? And the investment through the property taxes, it's not very much.
Ted, I would think a reaction to that, maybe be from you, from Rahm Emanuel's, wait a minute, people are paying really high taxes here when you compare them to other cities.
Oh, absolutely. We added up all the numbers at the Illinois Policy Institute, not just the property taxes, but all the nickel and diming that most Chicagoans sees from fees and fines and bottled water taxes and things like that. And they add up. By far, Chicago is a really, really expensive city. But I think a key point is that all these tax increases, this big property tax increase, won't go to make better schools. It won't go for more public safety. It won't go to better health care for the poor and disadvantaged. Instead, all that money is going to pay for old bills. So people who live in Chicago today won't see additional services from this. So it's going to be a real painful thing where you're paying more and getting nothing for it.
When I hear lines like the economy's getting better, I think, oh, everybody's got a long-term job with a 401k, but that's not the case here. Are we going to see jobs come back under this administration, under Rahm Emanuel, Wendell?
I don't think so. I think as long as we are raising taxes, as long as it's more expensive now to do business in the city of Chicago. That's what I've heard from a lot of businesses, that, the unions are killing us, your taxes are killing us. we're going to hold our convention somewhere else. It is very expensive to do business in the city of Chicago, and at some point, businesses are going to say, you know what, it's not worth it. You know, we can go to Indiana and other places where we can cut our bottom line and still be productive. So I think in the long run, again, it's going to run out residents and it's going to scare off potential businesses.
Another big headline this week was we had President Obama in town. He was speaking to the International Association of Police Chiefs. Some of the things that he was talking about were wanting stricter federal gun control, more background checks, where states work together, agencies work together. Michael, is this a federal issue? Should the federal government be involved in this?
Absolutely. I think you have a situation here where the situation with guns is so striking because you have, again, I think this is going to be like an Indiana show, right? So you got Illinois' gun laws, Chicago's gun laws, and Indiana, which is much more lenient to get a gun down there, and they're right abutting against each other. So a lot of the guns that you are seeing, 24% of crimes committed in Chicago are used by guns coming from Indiana. Now you have a situation here, though. You have two Republican governors now. They should be able to come together to try to iron something out. Mike Pence, the governor of Indiana, you know, he served in Congress with Mayor Emanuel. Maybe those three need to get a powwow together to see what they can do to stop this crisis, because it's starting to become a crisis also in Indiana. Indianapolis has a very high homicide rate. So why those lenient gun laws are starting to hurt Indiana as well.
Well, we have some sound from the president. Let's take a listen.
To make our communities safer and to make our officers safer. We've got to make it harder for criminals to cause chaos by getting their hands on deadly firearms. Police officers see the toll that gun violence takes on our communities. Not just when there's a mass shooting, but every single day.
So how do you react to that, Ted?
Well, I think the gun issue is obviously a big debate in the nation, but I think what it does is it avoids the root cause of the problem, and I think Wendell was hitting on it earlier. You know, in a place like the South Side and the West Side, we're struggling for people to find jobs. We're struggling for people to have an opportunity to advance in life, and so what's happening is that things like raising the minimum wage. If a young adult can't get a job at $8 an hour, they sure as heck can't get a job at $10 or $12 an hour. I think when we raise taxes on all these companies are going to have to pay more, small mom and pop shops or a barber in the South Side, he may have to lay off people. His business may not survive. And so what you're doing is you're creating more and more unemployment, less opportunities, and that's where the violence comes in.
Wendell, do you agree with that? Then if we have more jobs, we may see less crime?
I do. I agree. I think there's an economic factor to the gun violence here in Chicago. I agree with what the president said of not making it easily accessible, but there's two other things that I think are very important that contribute largely to the gun violence, not only here in Chicago, but nationally. One, and I agree with Police Superintendent McCarthy, that we need stricter penalties for those who are convicted of having illegal guns, firing illegal guns.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because in 2013, Mayor Emanuel McCarthy, Cook County State's Attorney Anita Alvarez said, let's extend for those with a gun possession from 1 year to 3 years, and Springfield, Michael, shot it down.
That's right. Well, because there's a cost factor there. If you incarcerate more people, it's going to, I mean, we're already seeing where some of the prisons in Illinois had to kind of downsize. So there's a cost to getting tough on these crimes, but something needs to be done. But here's the one key factor they always say, but the harder the gun laws, the tougher the gun laws, you know, criminals don't care about gun laws. They're going to get their guns one way or another. You got a state in Indiana that makes it a little bit easier for them to get that. So again, it's kind of this never-ending circle, but cooler heads need to come together for that.
And if I could just add, you know, another angle to the opportunity is not just the jobs, but also criminal justice reform. We're making it way too hard for people who get out of jail, who've served their time and now are ready to get back into society. We make it really hard for them through licensing restrictions, long waiting periods to get jobs. If we make it easier for them to get a job, then they won't be as likely to commit a crime again. So I think those kind of things are really what I think are the root cause. And that's what I think President Obama should be talking about more.
Well, speaking of President Obama, he had this to say, blaming the media. Take a listen.
I reject a storyline that says When it comes to public safety, there's an us and a them. A narrative that too often gets served up to us by news stations seeking ratings or tweets seeking retweets or political candidates seeking some attention.
Okay, so also in his speech, so he blames the media, social media, the political narrative. You're a member of the media. Do you agree?
I agree. I think sometimes it is sensationalized. I think that, and you know, I'm not taking away that crime is not news, because it is, but after 23 years of being in the news business, I've seen good stories get pushed to the side because somebody got shot. And all of a sudden, that's more important than this school that graduated all these new students. But I think one of the greatest contributing reasons why we have this gun problem, we need to look at who's committing these gun violence. A lot of times, it is young black males. And these young black males oftentimes come from broken homes. They do not have positive male role models. They're being raised by single women. And while we have great single moms in this world, I'm a firm believer that a woman cannot teach a boy how to be a man. And unfortunately, they've been saddled with that responsibility, and these young black males grow up without that male role model, and they're left to the streets to raise them. And as a result, those are the ones committing these violent acts, that 16 to 25 gap of young black males. So I think as a community, when you see that this child does not have a male role model, as a community, that community needs to come together to try and work with that single mom, get the kid involved in activities and other positive things so that they're not falling to the streets and shooting people.
All right, I want to switch gears on a lighter note to Halloween. Halloween is this weekend, and we're all excited about Halloween, but I don't know if the three of you knew this. This was news to me, that it costs big bucks. We've gotten sort of out of control. $2.5 billion expected to be spent on costumes, $2.1 billion on candy, $1.9 billion on decorations, $330 million on greeting cards. I've never received a greeting card on Halloween. That's news to me. So close to $7 billion. Ted, are we out of control?
I don't know if we're out of control. You know, there's a lot of money being spent on the economy, but I live next door to one of those families. Every Halloween, they would do a massive setup. They would make fresh, right there on the spot, fresh baked donut holes and apple cider. I couldn't compete with that. We had lines next door just waiting for that. And
nobody went to your house.
Nobody went to our house. Well, they came after, but they were disappointed.
Is this, though, Michael, would you say it's almost good for the economy? I mean, it seems a little ridiculous we're spending all this, but we need people to spend money. We need retailers to have business.
I think it's good for the economy, and that 2.5 billion or billion for costumes, well, 100 of that is my money, because my kids went to these costume shops. My daughter came back, my daughter Jessica, 10-year-old, she came back with a outfit. She wants to look like Anna from Frozen. She looked like she could go to a ball in this costume, you know? So yeah, it's getting more expensive, but I think in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's hurting anything. People want to keep that tradition.
Wendell, it used to be, though, it was one day. Now we have parties. We have people, in almost some cases, we talk about a tailgating party where people are pulling up their cars and saying, meet here, and they're giving candy out of the back of their cars to kids. Or there's a party in the school, but there's a party at this house. What happened to one day?
Well, you know, I agree. I think it's good that people are spending money because it helps the economy. But I think what we've gotten away from with Halloween is that it's too commercialized. And so, you know, I'm not going to tell my age, but I remember when I was young, you know, you can make your own costume.
That's right.
And you can have a good time. You can put a paper bag on your head and cut some holes and trick or treat. But now it's so commercialized that kids don't want to even trick or treat unless they have that, you know, whatever the theme is, whether it be Superman, Power Rangers, they have to have that outfit. And these outfits aren't cheap. And it's only for one day. I mean, you can't wear it to school Monday.
All right, which one of you, though, has a pet that you dress up for Halloween?
Oh, Lord.
Anybody have a dog?
I have a dog. He will not wear costumes.
So you don't buy into that?
No.
That's also, though, helpful to the economy, right? If we're spending more on our pets, Ted?
But I like what Wendell said. My son, when he was younger, went as a box. He just put a box on, and he was a UPS box. And that was very affordable. He looked cute, and it worked.
We used to go around with the UNICEF box when we were kids, right, and collect money. My mother wouldn't let me eat the candy, though. Were you able to eat the candy? At least a couple pieces?
When I was younger, things were a little different, so I was able to eat the candy. But my children, when they were young, they're adults now. because people were doing things to candy, I would just take them to my church. I never would take them trick-or-treating and get candy from strangers because I would have to examine the candy, and I didn't want to do that. So I would take them somewhere safe where I didn't have to worry about the candy being tampered
That was
with.
nice of you. Well, thank you to all of our guests today, to Wendell Hudson, Michael Puente, and Ted Dabrowski. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. And speaking of Halloween, these two brothers used their background in electrical engineering to create a spooky Halloween attraction, which later led them into a world many would dare not go.
Hey, what are you all looking at?
I always loved horror, and I always loved Halloween. It's my favorite holiday. I'm Robert Veach, and behind me is parts of the Jefferson Graveyard Show.
To the residents of northwest suburban Naperville, the names Robert and Stephen Veach are synonymous with Halloween. For 14 years, the brothers thrilled spectators with their elaborate life-size animatronics Halloween display called the Jefferson Graveyard Show.
We started to look at robots and things of that nature, and we thought it was too expensive. So we decided to hand-build all the characters and all the electronics.
It's really kind of cool to be cool.
During its run, the show drew hundreds of visitors each Halloween. But after years of entertaining kids and adults alike, a series of unexpected events have taken the Veach brothers on a completely different journey.
When I started doing the Jefferson Graveyard Show, I started to notice that whenever I would set the show up, especially after the second and third year when I had more characters, something would always happen that I couldn't explain that was paranormal. And it would just be little subtle things. It may be sounds, it may be things moving. And even to this day, when I set the show up just recently in the basement, I had some paranormal events happen to me and my wife here.
Puzzled yet curious by the recent unexplainable acts, Robert Veach saw it as a sign to delve into a new realm of horror: paranormal investigations.
He started watching some of the paranormal shows on TV and got interested in building gadgets that were paranormal in nature.
We formed a group called V Paranormal, and it's a family-based group. And we have a lot of research into paranormal devices.
Shortly after launching V Paranormal, word of mouth quickly brought attention to the family's paranormal investigations.
We get a lot of calls from families that have something happening that they can't explain.
For those who need the Veach's services, ghost stories are all too real. And while these investigators put science ahead of superstition, their research has raised both eyebrows and questions.
We're probably all skeptics, but when you come back and listen to the paranormal results, it's pretty interesting because you really start to question, what is that you're hearing?
Well, to hear more from the Veach family about their love for horror and to learn more about our guests and our stories, go to our website at wycc.org and look for In the Loop. And join us next week when we look at the devastating impact Illinois' budget stalemate has on families, public safety, social service providers, and even the state lottery. Until next time, I'm Lauren Cohn. Good night, everyone.